Welcome to 3 Degrees with proper fangirl Heather Anna. Who is proper fangirl? Well, that's me. Why am I proper fangirl? That's a very good question. I don't know. It started in April of 2020 where I decided to fangirl on a 27-year-old pop star. We won't get into who that pop star is. Well, maybe we will at the end of this episode. But somehow I became proper fangirl because who isn't the most proper fangirl at 45, a mother of 4, first time fangirling in my life? Yeah, me. Proper fangirl. So today what we're going to talk about is 3 generations of musical influence, and we're going to start with the Everly Brothers. Who influenced Stevie Nicks? Who influenced Harry freaking Styles? You know, does anybody know who? Okay, you don't know who Okay, if you don't know who Harry Styles is, please look into it after we get done with this episode. If you don't know who Stevie Nicks is, maybe that's not necessarily a surprise depending on your age. If you don't know who the Everly Brothers are, I'm not going to be mad at you at all. It was a hot second ago. But let's get into it today. I'm going to teach you just a little something. This is not going to be a biography. I'm not breaking down a history lesson. I'm just going to tell you what I thought was interesting when I started researching the Everly Brothers or Stevie Nicks or Harry Styles. Now, Harry Styles is pretty interesting. Stevie Nicks is pretty interesting. And Everly Brothers, oh my God, they're adorable. And, okay, I don't want to tell you already. Are you ready to get started? Are you ready to join? What are you doing? Okay, make sure you're putting your eyes are on the road, you're paying attention, you're focusing on however many minutes you have left on the elliptical or the treadmill, or you're out jogging or running. If you're out jogging or running, I don't know what you're doing. You should be listening to music. Why, you don't need a cadence. Okay, let's not get into that. Let's go straight into the Everly Brothers. Welcome to 3 Degrees. All right, everybody, let's get into the Everly Brothers. Okay, first question is, are they brothers? Of course they're brothers. They're siblings. They're 2 years apart. They were born to Ike and Margaret. How did they become the Everly Brothers is really the question. Well, originally they were the Everly family. Yeah, you guessed it. Somebody in the family wanted to be a musician. Yeah, that was Ike Everly. He was dying to be a musician. He was doing like the honky tonks in Chicago way back in the day. Did you know there was honky tonks in Chicago? I didn't know that. I learned that while I was studying for them. Yeah, so he wanted to do it. And so then what do you do as a dad? If you're into baseball, guess what? Son's going to be into baseball. If you're into football, guess what? Son's also going to be into football. And if you only have daughters, good news. Daughters can play football and baseball. Or maybe softball. And, well, you might have some trouble with the football thing. Anywho, Ike wanted his boys to sing just like him. So they had the Everly family. When they were doing this was way back in the day of radio, and it was live radio. Does anybody know what that means? Live radio means they got on there with their guitar and their piano and their yeah, that was my rendition of a drum. Rendition? No. Sound, whatever. You understand what I'm saying. They got on there with live instruments, live singing, yeah, for you. And there were gigs that they did together. And this was great until the boys became teenagers and Dawn and Phil Everly were like, yeah, hey, Dad, they're starting to switch to records. Like, what are we going to do? So Dad says, okay, I think we're going to have to get you to become recording artists. So let's go to Nashville. They go to Nashville. Don has this beautiful dream of being at the Grand Ole Opry, standing on the stage where all of his people have stood before. What happens? Yeah, well, they end up recording nothing at first. Yeah, nothing happened at first. Basically, they were outside in the alleyways outside the Ryman Theater in Nashville playing the guitar, just trying to get people to listen to them. Did they look like every other country artist in Nashville? They did not. Now, you're going to go back and you're going to look at them when I tell you that their hair was too long and their clothes were not quite right. And you're going to think, their hair's not long at all. Well, way back in the day, in the 50s, it was a tight haircut, okay? It was nothing over the ears. It was nothing on the nape of the neck. That was not allowed. That was for, I don't know, rock and roll stars? Perhaps a rock and roll star. But rock and roll hadn't been really invented yet. Can you imagine a time where rock and roll was not invented? Okay, there was a time. Okay, so they're out there and they're doing their thing and they're practicing and they're playing and they're trying to get people to notice them. And Dad even has a connection with Chet Atkins. And he's like, hey, here's these boys, the Everly Brothers. They're so great. They're tight harmony and they share a microphone and they both play the guitar. It's super cute. I mean, great. I mean, wonderful. I mean, there's this cool little riff that they do in the beginning that kind of sounds like Bo Diddley. And it does sound a little bit different, but I promise they're really nice boys. They're smart boys. They're capable boys. And nothing, absolutely nothing happened until Cadence Records came up with Wesley Rose and he said, look, I'll give you an audition. One audition. So they get ready and Don writes a song called Give Me a Future. Of course, completely and totally aptly named, right? Give Me a Future, Wesley Rose. And he said, you know what? I like your sound. It's good. It's good. The harmony is tight. The sound is a little bit different. I love what you're doing with the guitar there. I don't know what we're going to call that yet, but I like it. So he sends them off to record a song, and they introduce a song to them that 30 other artists had been like, yeah, no thanks, including Elvis Presley. Anybody heard of him? Yeah. New artist to you. Okay, look him up. He's got a couple of hits. And so they had all turned down a song called Bye Bye Love, Bye Bye Happiness, Hello. Okay, I don't sing it like they do, but you get the gist. Bye Bye Love. It's one of their songs. It's one of the singles that did really, really well. And so now they get signed with a 3-year contract with Cadence Records. So they think everything's going to go great. Everything's going to go perfect. And they start working with this husband and wife duo. And his name is okay, it sounds like I'm stuttering. I'm not stuttering. It's Boudleaux, Boudleaux. You say it. You do better than me. And his wife, Felice Bryant. And they did an amazing time understanding this sweet, beautiful, lovely little harmony that they did. It was tight because siblings, when they sing together, it's pretty freaking amazing. And they end up writing songs with them. And in fact, 9 singles, 7 of which sold over 1 million copies. This was a great duo. But, as it always happens, we're like, maybe I could have more. Maybe I could do more, be more. Yeah, that's what happens. So they end up leaving Cadence Records and they go to Warner Brothers because Warner Brothers offers them the opportunity to take acting. They could be actors. They could be on the TV. They could be, yeah, okay. Well, let's not break out my country accent too soon. They could be actors. So they did like a screen test, and I'm going to tell you how far it went. That's how far it went. It was a screen test. It did not go well. They were singers. That's all. And that's enough. It's enough, boys. You don't need to be actors. Not everybody needs to be an actor that's a singer. Did you know that an actor and a singer, some people call it a slashy? Have you ever heard that before? I'd never heard it before either. I think somebody made it up. But anyway, no slashies for the Everly Brothers. They just were going to be singers. They were just going to do the singing thing, which is fine. And it's great. So they're out there and they're touring. And this is not back in social media days. The way to get your name around is to be actively present in front of other people, which means that you are touring and you are on talk shows and you're on television and you are absolutely everywhere. It is a grueling schedule in order to do this, to make yourself be relevant so that everybody knows who that you are. Who that you are? Bless it. Precious. Cute. Anywho, they do really well. They have a couple of songs that come out, including Kathy's Clown. If you haven't listened to that, I just want you to know it's basically a song about being embarrassed that you're the one that's completely in love with her and she just doesn't, no, you're Kathy's Clown. It's so unfortunate. But anyway, they were doing really well. But then the touring schedule got tough. Yeah, as it does. And there's not enough time in the day, which there never is. And so you go to the doctor and you're like, hey, doc, I need a little bit of help. And he was like, let's try some vitamins. And by vitamins, he means amphetamines. And by amphetamines, we mean speed. And by speed, we mean up all night, up all day, and 100% going to get addicted and start having some problems. So Don did have some problems. And then we had another thing in the 60s that happened. Well, there was a whole war. Now, this isn't a history lesson. If you need to know what war was happening in the 60s, go look it up. I'm not going to talk about that. But they had 2 options. You are being drafted. You'll either do 2 years in the Army or you're going to do 6 months in the Marines. And they said, which will get me faster at the guitar, singing in front of folks, singing on one microphone. They chose the Marines. So they did the Marines. Meanwhile, across the pond, something was happening. A little band was formed, and people started referring to this band as the Young Everlys. And you're not going to believe who this little band was. Yeah, it was the Beatles. Do I need to say it again? Yeah, the Beatles. The Beatles were imitating the Everly Brothers. The Everly Brothers out there singing Bye Bye Love and Wake Up Little Susie and Kathy's Clown. And a little band over there was like, ooh, this thing that they're now calling rock and roll. Like literally they invented, along with Elvis Presley, the sound that is called rock and roll. It was the beat. It was the guitar riffs. It was just enough different from country music that they needed to give it a new name. So they go after they get done with the military thing and they're thinking, we haven't been in the public's face. What are we still... Are we relevant? Are we relevant? Do they know us? Do they love us? And so they go over across the pond and they're in England and they're going to get off the plane and they see a crowd of people and they're like, heck yeah, we are still relevant. This is amazing. They love us. And as soon as they get off the plane, they shove a microphone in their face and they're like, how do you feel about the Beatles? A real small little punch to the gut. Yeah, so maybe you're not as relevant as you thought, but maybe the English was just so excited that they wanted you to know that they had their own little band called the Beatles, and the Beatles did very, very well. Yeah, you might have heard of them. They may have a few gazillion hits. Okay. So, but they pressed on and they continued to make music until about the beginning of the 1970s. Now, I want you to think about touring with your sibling and singing with your sibling and sharing a mic with your sibling and writing songs with your sibling and showing up at every little talk that you do with your sibling. Okay, 20 years, you're tired of them. Done. You are donezo with your brother, sister, whoever. You're like, I don't even like you anymore. And that's kind of what happened. They stopped liking each other because, like, it was a lot for 20 years. And they're just kind of done. So they decide in July of 1973, this is it. Last show, this is all we're going to do. Now, we have two types of people when they're going to do the last show. It's either A, going to be amazing. You're going to prepare. It's going to be top notch. You're going to have fireworks. You're going to have the lights. Or plan B would drink all the alcohol because who gives a shit? Yeah, they did the who gives a shit. They said, okay, we're going to have a couple beverages. It'll be fine. We'll be fine. But as you know, if you go to do karaoke when you're drinking a little too much, even the words on the screen aren't going to help you. And there were no words on the screen. No, there were no words on the screen. So Don started to forget the lyrics and then he stopped singing the melody and then Don sings the harmony. And if you've ever heard a song where they're just singing the harmony, it is super unpleasant and doesn't really make any sense. And then Phil got really mad. And so then he takes his guitar by the neck, which is like the handle thingy at the end. And he throws it down on the stage so hard that he splintered it into a gazillion pieces. So that was a little bit of a dramatic ending to the Everly Brothers at the time. And then they took the next 10 years before they got back together. They did get back together, so I did just kind of give you a spoiler. They did pop in real quick for Father's funeral in 1975, but that was like a come in and here we're being respectful and blah, 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 and then just immediately go back to having children and being married and all the things. And how did they get back together? Was it dramatic? Did they make a phone call? Did they sit down together and be like, hey man, I know it's been weird and awkward and I know I haven't talked to you in 10 years and basically, you're my little brother, you're my big bro and I love you. No, they didn't do any of that. They do it exactly how men do it. And they're like, hey man, are you cool? Like, yeah, I'm cool. Pat each other on the back and get on stage. Meanwhile, right before the Everlys broke up in 1973, there was another up-and-coming rock star, but of the female sort, who was looking at the Everly Brothers and thinking, yeah, how about I go my own way? And that person was Stevie Nicks. Stevie Nicks is an absolute legend. And there is no way that I'm going to be able to give you all of the details of her fabulous rock and roll journey. So just know that these are just some of the highlights. Stevie was born to create music. By the age of 4, she was already learning to harmonize with her grandfather. By the age of 15, after requesting a guitar as a gift, she learned how to play without lessons. Singing into her hairbrush songs from Janis Joplin, the Everly Brothers, Aretha, and the like just further encouraged her to want to take the stage. Her mother told her that she would need to be the CEO or the president of her own company because Stevie could not stand to be told what to do. Her daddy encouraged his little Lily to hit the stage. So she definitely had the support of her family to pursue a music career, but she was to be educated. As fate would have it, Stevie happened upon the guitarist Lindsey Buckingham at a youth group shindig when she was a senior in high school. Lindsey was only 16 at the time and happened to be playing California Dreamin' by the Mamas and the Papas. Being the bold badass that you'd imagine Stevie to be, she came right up and sang the harmony with Lindsey. Whatever their exchange was that day, it didn't pick up again for another 2 years. Lindsey sought Stevie out to fill the girl's part in a band he played in. She still says that she didn't fancy him at this point, but also mentions how incredibly blue his eyes were. As a girl that fancies blue-eyed babies, I think thou protest a bit too much. Either way, she joined the band. Little success was had, but when they went off on their own and became Buckingham Nicks, they began to get noticed. Stevie is definitely known for her discipline. During the Buckingham Nicks phase, she was in school, so the schedule was tight. After school, they practiced from 5:30 to 10:30 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and then gigged Friday and Saturday night. Sundays were for her studies. And the work was definitely paying off. While in San Francisco, they were opening up for the likes of Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix. But this still wasn't enough for Stevie. She wanted more. She decided that she needed to go where the music scene was really breaking out. LA was the place to be. She informed Mom and Dad that she and Lindsey would be moving. Though they supported her decision, they would withdraw their financial assistance because she was quitting school. Undeterred, they set off. They ended up moving in with their producer, Keith Olsen. It was 1972, and they had little to nothing, but they were making music. Stevie cleaned houses and waitressed. In fact, the only way that their producer could get them off of his couch was to agree to allow Stevie to clean his house twice a week at a rate that helped them be on their own. Every day, Stevie left Lindsey and their band to work on songs. She often would leave them with a skeleton of a little something and would come home to a completed song. But the constant struggle to just get by was wearing on her. In another part of the world, there was an English band called Fleetwood Mac. This band was named after original bandmates drummer Mick Fleetwood and bass player John McVie. Though they had some success and had added a female vocalist, Christine McVie, who, by the way, was married to the bass player, they were having the worst time holding on to band members. They had an opening for a guitarist, and though the story gets a little muddled depending on who's telling it, Fleetwood Mac sought out Lindsey. Lindsey says that he told them that he and Stevie were a package deal, because by this time, Stevie and Lindsey were dating. So they agreed to meet with both to see if the vibe was right. Now, let's be honest, they were really trying to make sure that the girls got along, and said as much. But after a dinner with the whole crew, they definitely wanted them to join. But Stevie and Lindsey didn't say yes, yet. Lindsey felt like they could make it on their own, and Stevie wanted to find out if they had something to bring to the band. She went out with a little bit of money that she had left and bought every record that Fleetwood Mac had. She determined there was something mystical that they could bring, and boy was she right. They quickly got to work on their album as the new collab, and within 6 months, Stevie says they were millionaires. Their first album came out in 1975, and though it was self-titled, it is often referred to as the White Album. 4 singles were released on this album: Over My Head, Warm Ways, Rhiannon, and Say You Love Me. What you don't know is that Landslide was on this album, on the B side. Now, if you don't know, okay, well, the B side, or flip side, is a secondary recording that typically receives less attention. I wonder who made that decision. Landslide is easily the most popular and, dare I say, most loved song Fleetwood Mac ever recorded. I, too, resonate with the line, "I've been afraid of changing because I built my world around you." And to be fair, who doesn't fall into nostalgia when listening to that song? Fear of the unknown is an all-too-familiar story that touches each of us at some point. Despite the success of the album, they didn't sit around on their laurels. They got out there and toured their asses off. And as you can imagine, it was grueling. And with grueling schedules comes exhaustion. And as we learned with our last artist, things get offered to our beloved musicians. Stevie actually laid it out this way. You're tired, so you have a little Coke to wake back up. But then you're a little too nervous, so you decide to loosen up with a little brandy. And then you get a little sloppy, so you smoke a little weed to calm yourself down. And thus the cycle repeats itself. In fact, Stevie says that she got to the point where she never went anywhere without a gram of coke in her boot. And with drugs and alcohol come issues. 13 months of 20 hours a day of recording for the album Rumors, all kinds of drama were taking place behind the scenes. As you can imagine, when you are drunk and high with your bandmates, some slip-ups can happen. And they did happen. Literally. Lindsay and Stevie broke up and tension continued, but despite all of the messiness that was created, they trudged on to make what may have been their best album. 2 breakup songs were written on this album by 2 different perspectives, Dreams by Stevie and Go Your Own Way by Lindsay. Despite all the struggles amongst the bandmates, the music did not suffer. Devastation leads to writing really great things, Stevie once said. There was one song that Stevie wanted to include on the album, and it was called Silver Springs. It was her mother's favorite song that she had ever written, and Stevie was planning on giving the royalties to her. But she didn't win the argument for that album. Later, in 2004, it was released and ended up getting a Grammy nomination. So I guess she got to say I told you so. Just in case you were wondering, her mother did get to enjoy 14 years of royalties before she passed away. Time marched on and they continued to make music, however tragedy struck home for Stevie. In 1981, the same year that she released her debut solo album Belladonna, her best friend Robin got leukemia. While she was in remission, she got pregnant, but the cancer came back. Because she wanted to give birth to her baby, she refused meds and ultimately did pass away. Matthew was born and Stevie wanted to take care of the baby, so in the middle of her grief, she convinced Robin's husband to marry her. Stevie and Kim were married 3 months after Robin died. The marriage dissolved as quickly as it was made, but Stevie found better ways to help take care of Robin and Kim's boy, Matthew. In grief and addiction, Stevie continued her relationship with cocaine for another 5 years. Stevie recalls the money that was wasted on cocaine in these days and advises others not to go down this road. She says, "You'll need $50,000 for rehab, so save your money." Stevie went to the Betty Ford Clinic in the end of 1985 and credits Betty directly for saving her life. She was only there for 4 weeks, but she was inspired by Betty and believed that if Betty Ford could turn her life around, so could she. So she did. Later on, she would have to kick another habit of Klonopin that was supposed to help with panic attacks, but instead put her in a near catatonic state. Again, she quit and was able to move on with her life. Stevie is an absolute force of nature. When I lay out all the things that she believes in and or loves, she kind of sounds like a mystical creature. She is a poet who crochets, draws, believes she has been reincarnated more than once, loves chiffon, lace, and velvet. Everything about her iconic style is part of a magical fairyland where the Sisters of the Moon dwell. She is a boss in every sense of the word. She speaks her mind freely. She owns who she is and makes no excuses for parts of her that have seemed messy. She's been asked about love and even more so asked about Lindsay and if love still remains. She has said, "The love is always there, but we'll never be together, so that's even more romantic." She is happy that she has lived most of her adult life without a partner and refuses to apologize for being fine with being focused on career, her lifelong girlfriends, and a great dog. Stevie has touched the lives of so many. Sometimes you are influencing those that can't even understand the words of your songs. Such was the case for a little boy in Holmes Chapel who thought he had learned the words to a song about the weather. As you know, if there hadn't been Stevie, we would have never known what only happens when it's raining. All right, now we're going to talk about Harry Styles. Harry Styles was born February 1st, 1994. His father is Desmond, his mother is Anne, his older sister is Gemma. He was a darling little boy. Funny, silly, proper show-off, but a darling little boy. One of my favorite stories that Gemma tells about Harry is the little notes that he would leave. One of them was, "I'm sorry I called you a poo head. I'd like a cookie. I'll be in my room." So he was out to get a laugh. He was also great when he did his little plays at school. If he was the mouse, he did the hand gestures and the hat was just right and the tail was just right because he was so focused because he was going to do exactly what the teacher told him to do. Or if it needed a laugh when he was dressed up as Elvis and he needed to do a quick hip swing when he was singing Love Me Tender or Jailhouse Rock, well, he did that too. And he gets to the point where he is doing a fair amount of karaoke and he's thinking, I'm watching X Factor, I can do that. He's 16 years old now, and he mentions to his mom and his sister one night while they're watching X Factor, that seems fun. So Anne signs him up for an audition. He has to decide what he's going to sing, so being the proper show-off that he is, but also being the introvert that he also is, he said, "You can't look me in the eye while I'm singing, so I need you to stand outside the bathroom door, and I'm going to be looking directly into the mirror, staring at myself with my pretend microphone, practicing my 3 songs, and you let me know which one's the best." So they did it. They stood outside the door, listened, and they decided that Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder was the one that he should go with. So they go and they take him to the audition. And Jim is thinking, all right, we've got an hour tops and then we can go get ice cream and then I can commiserate with you on how sad it is that they didn't choose you. But obviously, this is a no-go. But he goes to the audition and he gets past the first set and the second set and however many sets there are until he's standing in front of Simon Cowell in his little floppy hairdo that's all swished and swashed in every different way, and a little tiny scarf that was like, pencil thin, and then the 72,000 bracelets. And he sings Isn't She Lovely, a cappella by Stevie Wonder. And though they thought he was adorable and cute and had some talent, they felt like he was just simply too young. So they sent him on his way, and that's it. No more for you. And he cried, and the other boys cried, and there were girls crying. Everybody was crying. But then, as fate would have it, they get called back with 4 other boys. Louis Tomlinson, Liam Payne, Zayn Malik, and Niall Horan, along with Harry Styles. And Simon says, I think you should be in a band. And so they're now in a boy band. And Harry comes up with the name One Direction. So One Direction was born. Do you know about One Direction? Okay, let me give you some stats on One Direction real quick. They released 5 studio albums, which were Up All Night, Take Me Home, Midnight Memories, 4, and Made in the AM. That one was done without one of the members, but yeah, Zayn was gone by then. Anyway, they had 10 extended plays, 17 singles, including 2 charity singles, 2 video albums, and 17 music videos. They did well. But there was definitely something different about One Direction. They weren't like a regular boy band. It wasn't like NSYNC, New Kids on the Block, all of that. There was no synchronized dancing. There was no matching outfits. They were just their own individual selves. And I think that's kind of part of their charm. They had their own style. Harry had various, okay. All right, I'm going to tattle on myself real quick, and I'm going to tell you there was different versions of Harry. If you're an actual Harry, that means if you're in the fandom. Okay. Oh my God. I can't even believe I'm going to tell you this. Okay. So Harry Styles has lovely hair and locks of beautiful curls. And so the people in the fandom, which I didn't do this, I didn't start this, so don't look at me, but they named him by his eras. There were eras according to his hair. Okay. So there's fetus Harry, that was the beginning, 16-year-old Harry. And then there was frat boy Harry, when he started to get to know all the girls, and I guess he got muscles or something. And then there was Prince hair Harry. His hair was getting a little bit longer and he kind of looked like a prince, I guess. And then there was long hair Harry. So yeah, there was all these different, he had his own style. He had his own thing. Louis was also hedgehog, I think, at some point. And Liam was no hair. And of course, there's Niall, who had the bleached hair. He wasn't really blonde. Anyway, they went their own way. They did their own thing. And this is part of the things that the fandom really liked. The Directioners were in love with One Direction because they had a boy of their own, whether it was Zayn or Louis or Niall or Liam or Harry. They picked their own. Well, I'm going to tell you, when I started watching this, I was 100% on board with Harry because he was the weirdest of all of them. In my personal opinion, he's so goofy and so bizarre. Now, I know that if you see him now, you think, oh, he's so cool. He's not cool at all. And I hate to say this, he is the weirdest of the weird. And I love weird. Even in the One Direction days, he would get up on stage, whether he was running around and flouncing or whether he was swinging his arms, or the 62 gazillion times that he fell down, or putting on a banana hat or a banana costume, or mocking his fans. He was just a freaking delight to me. And it didn't really change much. I mean, I know he's wearing Gucci now, but I'm telling you, he's the same 16-year-old boy he was then. But as you know, all good things must come to an end. Every boy band has their time together, and then they have their times apart. So in 2016, they decided to take a break, go on hiatus, take a sabbatical, all these words that they learned when they were in the process of taking a break. And so they started to do their solo careers. And here Harry goes. And the first thing that he did was, he decided to renovate his house in London. And the story, as Harry tells it, is that Ben Winston, who was an executive producer for a lot of projects that they did in One Direction, offered to let him stay with him and his wife in their attic. So here comes Harry with his mattress, tosses it on the floor into this kosher household, which he knows nothing about kosher households, as he ordered a pepperoni pizza the first week that he was there. They let him sit outside in the cold to eat that and reminded him next time, no pepperoni, please. So he lives with Ben Winston and his wife, and there was some great comfort that he found in doing that. I think that he was probably longing for some family, but he said it also kept him out of trouble. One of the things that he talks about in his interview with Howard Stern was that at that time he had learned a lot about how people treated people in the music industry. All the gossip and everything that happened after 2 a.m. Well, he didn't want to be a part of that. He wanted to treat people with kindness. So, and also because he was staying with a couple that he didn't really know, he wasn't going to come home off his face. So it kind of kept him out of trouble, and it gave him a little bit of family for a little while he was waiting for his house to be renovated. After Harry left One Direction, he spent a lot of time writing songs. When he was in the band, he co-wrote a lot of songs, my favorite being If I Could Fly. And he decided that he wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction when he did his self-titled debut album, which we lovingly call in the fandom HS1. The album had Sweet Creature and Meet Me in the Hallway and Woman. And when I go back and listen to them, having been a child born in the 70s, but also loving music of the 70s, I was kind of brought back. In fact, the first time that my father heard Sign of the Times, he said, "Is that a Beatles song?" I was like, man, Harry would love to hear that. But no. But it was a song that Rolling Stone ranked best song in 2017. So he wrote a completely different kind of album, but he still talks about that to this day, of how he felt like he was writing with the bumpers up. He was writing with some fear. He was worried that people wouldn't take him seriously. So he wrote a 6.5-minute piano ballad called Sign of the Times. Well, they did take him seriously. The album did well. He also decided that he wanted to take on some acting, so he auditioned for a role in a Christopher Nolan movie called Dunkirk, and he got it. And though fans were excited, I don't know that they were expecting the level of asshole that Harry Styles could bring to the table. But they were excited, and they loved it. And when he was asked if he would ever act again, he said he might be one and done, but he wasn't sure. But did he sign up to executive produce a TV show called Happy Together with Ben Winston? He did. Did he guest host on The Late Late Show? Was he the musical guest and a host for SNL, where the general public found out how hilarious he was? Yes, he did. Did he also do a bedtime story for the Calm app that still soothes the soul of his fandom on the daily? Well, yes, he did. Oh, did you know that he says my name 5 minutes and 4 seconds into that app? Okay. Well, I might have mentioned that before, but yes, there's that. He also co-chaired the Met Gala in 2019 and started the high-waisted trouser trend that every housewife owes him gratitude for. Thank you, Harry Styles, because who can get that mommy pouch in those low-waisted pants? It just wasn't a good look for us. That's all I'm saying. He also started tearing down some gender norms. Harry Styles and his fashion, it's one of my favorite things. Did you know that he was the first man on the cover of Vogue? 168 years of women on the cover of Vogue. And in November of 2020, he was on the cover of Vogue in a ball gown. Now, you may not understand that and you may not like it, but what I'm going to tell you is that he has created space for people to be whoever it is that they want to be in the room. He actually says that in his tour, be whoever you want to be in the room. And this is where I kind of came into Harry Styles. He had just done the cover of Vogue. He was getting ready to start his tour for Love on Tour in 2021. And I'm going to tell you, this man has a vision. And his vision is for everyone to be in a space that they are comfortable in. When asked about his clothing choices, he has said, clothing shouldn't be about whether it's for a woman or a man, but rather if you like it and think it is fun. Let's stop taking ourselves so incredibly seriously, y'all. And let's have fun with fashion. His second album, Fine Line, has become an anthem for an anxious generation that just wants to know that we'll be all right. I was in the room for Love on Tour for 13 of the 42 shows. Does that sound like a lot to you? Well, maybe it is a lot to you. But what I will tell you is that it wasn't a lot. It was everything that I needed. Harry Styles stands for inclusivity and diversity and uses his trademark phrase, which is also one of his songs, treat people with kindness. And he lives it and breathes it in these rooms where he is singing to us and playing with us and talking with us. I am so in love with the person that he represents. He is the kind of person to go out in his car, spend $2,000 or $3,000 on pizzas, and drive around to LA handing out pizza to the homeless with no publicity, with no paparazzi following him. He did that on his own. He sneaks into hospitals to visit with the sick, not so that someone can say something great about him, so that he can do something that means something. There's a video that went viral of him singing on an iPad to a girl who was dying. And he was singing Sweet Creature, and he's crying, as you would, as a human. It wasn't meant to go viral. The family ended up sharing, but it wasn't something that he put out there, like, look at me and look at all the nice things that I do. The thing that struck me the most about Harry Styles is that for some reason, somehow, after spending a decade in the music industry, an industry which, let's face it, a lot of times destroys the human spirit, has somehow not destroyed his spirit. He is still out there being kind. No one has anything negative to say about Harry Styles' behavior. I looked it up. I tried to find Harry Styles being mean, Harry Styles being unkind, and there was nothing. It's part of the reason that I fell in love with him. That and the fact that he's so freaking weird that I can't stand it. And I love that. Now Harry Styles is looking at doing HS3, and he's finishing out his Love on Tour. And he just sold out Wembley Stadium twice. This is the level that he is at. His fans are so excited for him, they can't hardly stand it. And I'm one of them. I am so looking forward to everything that he has to bring. But I wanted to share a little article from Rolling Stone that came out on August 26, 2019, written by Rob Sheffield, called The Eternal Sunshine of Harry Styles. And I just feel like this should explain the last little bit of everything that I love about Harry Styles. That evening, Fleetwood Mac take the stage in London, a sold-out homecoming gig at Wembley Stadium, the last UK show of their tour. Needless to say, their most devoted fan is in the house. Harry has brought a date, his mother, her first Fleetwood Mac show. He's also with his big sister Gemma, bandmates Roland and Jones, a couple of friends. He's in hyperactive host mode, buzzing around his cozy VIP box, making sure everyone's champagne glass is topped off at all times. As soon as the show begins, Harry's up on his feet, singing along, tell me lies, and cracking jokes. You can tell he feels free, as if his radar is telling him that there aren't any snoopers or paparazzis watching. He's correct. This is a rare public appearance where nobody spots him, and no photos leak online. It's family night. His friend Mick Fleetwood wilds out on the drum solo. Imagine being that cool, Gemma says. Midway through the show, Harry's demeanor suddenly changes. He gets uncharacteristically solemn and quiet, sitting down by himself and focusing intently on the stage. It's the first time all night he's taken a seat. He's in a different zone than he was a few minutes ago, but he's seen many Fleetwood Mac shows, and he knows where they are in the set. It's time for Landslide. He sits with his chin in hand, his eyes zeroing in on Stevie Nicks. As usual, she introduces her most famous song with a story of how she wrote it when she was just a lass of 27. But Stevie has something else she wants to share. She tells the stadium crowd, I'd like to dedicate this to my little muse, Harry Styles, who brought his mother tonight. Her name is Anne. And I think you did a really good job raising Harry, Anne. Because he's really a gentleman, sweet and talented, and boy, that appeals to me. So all of you, this is for you. As Stevie starts to sing Landslide, I've been afraid of changing because I built my life around you. Anne walks over to where Harry sits. She crouches down behind him, reaches her arms around him tightly. Neither of them says a word. They listen together and hold each other close to the very end of the song. Everybody in Wembley is singing along with Stevie, but these two are in a world of their own. All right, guys, that was it. That was episode one. I have been working on this idea for months now, and I can't even believe that we made it here. Is there a gazillion things that I feel like I forgot to tell you? Yeah, well, there are. And is it perfect? No. But we are pleasing, never perfect. For those of you that get it, you get it. I just want to thank you for being here today. I'm going to see you next time on 3 Degrees when I do this again with 3 other artists. See you then.